Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast in the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Today, we continue week 10, the Quest for Holiness series. 2 weeks to prepare you for the journey of a lifetime. Today's podcast is Lecture I, a word of truth accounting of the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life, day 10. The title of today's podcast is The Pinnacle of Holiness, Part 4. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrine of Messiah, let us go on to perfection. Hebrews 6:1. The Lecture I objectives are: reveal the importance of principles and analyze Pinnacle Principles 4 through 12. For those in our virtual book club, this lecture references Chapter 8 of the Pinnacle of Holiness, Volume 1, the Pinnacle Principles. Now, our first section is entitled, It's Always a Matter of Principle. As you know, today's lecture is a final podcast in the preliminary phase of the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. This phase has accounted for 10 weeks, 50 podcasts, and many hours of prayer, fasting, and focus on our part to ensure you are as prepared as you can be for what lies ahead. I trust you have enjoyed it as much as we have. As a final lesson, the Spirit has led me to lecture on 9 of the 12 Pinnacle Principles He revealed to me more than 2 decades ago. We discussed 3 of these principles early in the series on levels, attainment, and intervals. I am quite sure you all understand the immense value of principles. Namely, principles are at the foundation of every progressive society. They are the guiding lights that ensure every member fulfills their destiny. This is very crucial in our case because the quest for holiness contains various stretches where there is little to no light. And the only way you're going to get through these dark hours is by following the principles handed down to you. Classically, this is why many have failed this quest. It's because they didn't follow the principles required to succeed. They didn't have the spiritual and physical structure needed to endure all the obstacles on their path. This is why the Spirit has led me to include this phase with one of the most fundamental requirements for success. By the end of this final lecture, you will see just how important principles are to your success, for every step on the way of holiness is guided by a principle. Now, our next section is entitled Pinnacle Principles 4 through 7. Pinnacle Principles 4 through 7 further analyze the relationship between the levels and intervals of holiness. These principles prove that our forward focus should be on the intervals and demonstrating our mastery of every objective, i.e., component of the Father's will. At the same time, you will find that each interval of holiness is an extension of the level that precedes it. For this cause, you will never succeed in the interval if you do not receive and accept all the lessons you learn as you work to attain unto every level. The fourth principle has to do with progress. It reveals the following. To move from one level to the next, you must accomplish the interval between these two levels. As this is the only way to ascend the pinnacle, the intervals of holiness are the true markers of your progress toward perfection. As you can see by the image to the right. For example, to progress from faith to virtue, you must master obedience, i.e., take the stairs to go up. And here you see, obedience represents the stairs that lead from faith to virtue. The fifth principle has to do with application. It reveals the following. The application of any level or interval of holiness is proven by your demonstration of the interval following it. For example, the application of the fear of Elohim is proof you have mastered faith and obedience. Per the image, faith and obedience precede the fear of Elohim. The sixth principle has to do with validation. It reveals the following. The application of any interval within the pinnacle of holiness serves as validation that you have mastered all the levels and intervals preceding it. For example, your mastery of wisdom is evidence you have mastered knowledge, the fear of Elohim, virtue, obedience, and faith. And again, you should see this by the image to the right. The seventh principle has to do with objectives. It reveals the following. Each level of holiness is its own objective, and it is also the objective of the interval following it. For example, faith is obviously the objective of faith, and it is also the objective of obedience, i.e., obedience is an extension and validation of our faith. Now, our next section is entitled Pinnacle Principles 8 through 12. Pinnacle Principles 8 through 12 focus on your status and the conditions you must endure in this quest. These will help you monitor your progress and ensure you are on schedule, i.e., not falling behind, nor trying to get too far ahead. The eighth principle has to do with regression. It reveals the following. Failure to master any level according to the Father's schedule will result in some form of regression of that level. In the worst case, continued failure could result in regression to prior levels, and this would force you to master every impacted level a second time. For example, if you fail to go from knowledge to temperance in the allotted time, you will regress to virtue or to faith and be required to redo these courses. The ninth principle has to do with assessment. It reveals the following. Our overall assessment, i.e., spiritual grade, is based upon the sum of our successes and failures per the various synchronized tests and trials which the Father has predetermined that we should endure in our quest. For example, your spiritual grade is based upon how well you demonstrate faith through love. Simple enough. The 10th principle has to do with status. It reveals the following. Our position on any level of holiness is validated by our mastery of each interval which precedes it. This determines our status within the pinnacle of holiness and identifies the next degree we must master to continue progressing toward perfection. For example, if you have mastered faith and virtue, you are on the level of knowledge, i.e., the third grade of holiness. That is your status. The 11th principle has to do with the pull. It reveals the following. The pull is a spiritual force similar to physical gravity, and that it produces a constant strain on all who labor to ascend the pinnacle of holiness. This proves that it is much easier to regress than it is to make progress toward perfection. I.e., every step you take from faith to love will be marked by a constant force that works to impede your progress by pulling you back. The 12th principle has to do with measurement. It reveals the following. The true measure of our progression toward perfection is not how much we have achieved. Rather, it is the sum of the effort we have exerted in our pursuit. I.e., progressing from faith to love is not only about reaching the top of the pinnacle, it's also and more about how you got there. Now, here is the final word. When you're a man or woman of principle, it's always a matter of principle. I appreciate how the greater value of these principles will be realized as you are on your quest. And that's why I saved them for last, because we are on the verge of beginning this quest. And these 12 principles, more than anything else, will help you stay on the pinnacle of holiness and make it all the way to the top. Trust me, we are going to come back to these principles again and again and again, because they account for all the primary scenarios of this quest. For this cause, I call upon you to become men and women of principle, and remember that every occasion of success in this quest is founded upon principle. Now, here is the assignment for today. Make sure that you have taken good notes on this series. And if you would like a one-pager with the 12 Pinnacle Principles, let me know. I'll make sure you'll get one. Now, here's what's next. We completed today's podcast, The Pinnacle of Holiness, Part 4. And you are now prepared to move on to the next phase in this quest. Now that we have completed week 10, we have concluded the preliminary phase. You are now prepared to formally initiate the quest for holiness. And this is our new series, Join the Quest. The objective, to reveal how and why you should join the quest for holiness so that you can be transformed into the spiritual model of Yahushua Messiah and certify your election into everlasting life. This will obviously be a pivotal series, for we will begin the transition from the preliminary phase into the quest for holiness, the central focus of these leading 10 weeks of podcasts. For this cause, I have been led to dedicate the upcoming series to providing you with details around how you can sign up and what you should expect if the Father has called you to join us. And it all begins on Monday. So have a great weekend, everyone. As always, take some time to review the notes from this series and pray to the Father that you stay strong as we prepare to formally initiate the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Now, if you are a member and have questions, please click the Q&A box underneath the video player. Likewise, if you have comments you want to share with the group, please share those in the comment box located beneath the Q&A box. Now, if you're not a member and you have questions about today's podcast, feel free to contact us via our website at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and use the form on our contact page, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. And thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022.